Gyeongju, a city that holds 1,000 years of history. The cherished values preserved over time have shaped who we are today. Now, through new encounters, we step into a better future. Sustainability, innovation. With the spirit of connection, a new millennium story begins. As APEC and Gyeongju come together. APEC meets Gyeongju.
Back to the Blue House. President Lee Jae-myung has begun his first day of work at the Blue House, marking the return of South Korea's presidency to the historic complex for the first time in more than 3 years. We take a closer look at how the President's Day unfolded. A record-breaking year for exports. South Korea's annual exports have topped $700 billion for the first time on record. We break down what's behind the surge and why it matters for the economy. Apology and compensation. E-commerce giant Coupang has laid out its compensation plan following a massive data breach affecting more than 33 million customers. The move comes a day after the company's founder issued a long-awaited apology. Good evening and thank you for joining us on this Monday. I'm Song-Yujin, filling in for Kim Dami. We begin tonight at the Blue House, also known as Cheongwade, which has officially resumed its role as South Korea's presidential office for the first time in 3 years and 7 months. Now, President Lee Jae-myung began work there today, roughly 7 months after taking office. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min has a wrap-up of the president's first day at Cheongwade.
It was an unusual scene on Monday morning to witness a president clocking in for work. Wearing a 3-colored tie representing national unity, President Lee Jae-myung made his first commute to the Blue House since taking office, having relocated his office from Yongsan. His supporters were waving flags and calling out his name outside, and his senior aides waited for him to arrive. Upon arrival, he met aides over tea where he was briefed on this year's exports and investment by foreigners, expected to be record highs, as well as the launch of a task force against transnational online scam crimes. He also visited the National Crisis Management Center, located underground, asking for thorough defense readiness 24/7 to protect the lives of the people. And he made a surprise visit to the Chunchugan press room, greeting reporters. On the stroke of midnight, the symbolic presidential flag, bearing a pair of phoenixes, was raised at Cheongwade, also known as the Blue House. With that, it has restored its name and status as the nation's top office. The president will mostly stay at the Yeomin-gwan building, rather than the main office building, for close communication with his senior aides and staff.
With the return to the Blue House, we will show the Lee Jae-myung-style pragmatism that prioritizes transparency and competency, restores communication with the public, and renews the status as a global pillar of diplomacy and defense.
Lee will commute to and from work for the time being until the renovation of the official residence is completed. In 2022, former President Yoon Suk-yeol relocated the nation's top office to the building used by the Defense Ministry in Yongsan, where he declared martial law last year. President Lee has vowed to end the Yongsan era and focus on state affairs at the traditional presidential compound for the remainder of his term. The office vowed to bolster communication with the public, apparently with criticism in mind that the place is symbolic of a lack of communication. In the long term, the president plans to relocate the office to the administrative city of Sejong. Yoon, Arirang News.
In other news, the special counsel team probing corruption allegations involving former First Lady Kim Keon Hee released its findings on Monday. According to Special Prosecutor Min Jung-gi, who led the investigation, Kim repeatedly received expensive gifts and was extensively involved in personnel appointments and election nominations. The former First Lady has been indicted on 9 criminal charges, including political interference, accepting valuables, and stock price manipulation. Kim's legal team said in a statement that the investigation's findings will ultimately be judged in court, adding that she will fully cooperate with the trial process with a lower court ruling scheduled for January 28th. Now with this, all 3 special counsel investigations launched this summer have wrapped up. The other 2 probes examined the death of a Marine during a flood rescue operation and former President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law declaration. In other news, one of the most notable institutional changes in South Korea heading into the new year is the revival of the Ministry of Budget and Planning, which will take over budgetary authority previously held by the Finance Ministry. President Lee on Sunday nominated veteran conservative lawmaker Lee Na-hyun to lead the ministry. Our Kim Do-yeon looks at the nominee's economic outlook and her diagnosis of the domestic economy.
The nation's economy in the short term is facing a perfect storm due to inflation and the weak Korean won. That's the view of the nominee for South Korea's newly created Minister of Planning and Budget, Lee Na-hyun. Lee faced the media for the first time on Monday as she starts her confirmation process. And in her long-term diagnosis, Lee says the nation has been ignoring its threats.
I view the 5 major issues we are concerned about: the demographic crisis, the climate crisis, extreme polarization, the rapid transformation of industry and technology, and regional extinction as a gray rhino situation. These are dangers we are all aware of and have long been warned about, yet they become fatal threats when ignored or neglected.
To tackle these gray rhino risks, the nominee argued that the government must fundamentally change how it operates. She stressed that the current method of short-term resource allocation is insufficient for solving complex, long-term problems. Instead, Lee proposed a systematic shift where fiscal strategy is tightly coupled with forward-looking policy planning.
We need an approach that links planning with budgeting. It is not about allocating funds on a short-term, case-by-case basis, but rather a method where planning and the budget are synchronized with a vision for the future.
This policy is a driving force behind the government's latest restructuring. Under a reorganization bill set to take effect in January, the massive Ministry of Economy and Finance will be split into 2 separate entities. The existing body will retain its focus on immediate policy execution and tax affairs. The new Ministry of Planning and Budget, which Lee has been tapped to lead, will be established under the Prime Minister's office. Its specific mandate is to function as a control tower for mid to long-term national strategy, ensuring that budget outlays are investing in future growth engines rather than just covering current costs. The nomination by President Lee Jae-myung came as a surprise. Lee Na-hyun is a former 3-term lawmaker from the main opposition conservative bloc and has been vocal against President Lee. The presidential office described the appointment as a symbol of unity and pragmatism. Officials explained that given the severe economic volatility, the administration prioritized expertise and legislative experience over political background, noting that the economy has no room for partisan division. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Now on the economic front, 2025 has become a milestone year for South Korea's exports. The country has surpassed the $700 billion mark, becoming just the 6th country in the world to reach that shipment level. Cha Young-kyung breaks down what drove the surge.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources and the Korea Customs Service announced on Monday that South Korea's annual exports have surpassed $700 billion in value for the first time. This makes it the sixth country to do so behind the United States, Germany, China, Japan, and the Netherlands, showing faster export growth compared to other major economies. In 1948, exports amounted to $19 million, meaning the export volume has grown more than 36,000 times. The country achieved $700 billion in exports 30 years after exceeding $100 billion in 1995, and 7 years after surpassing $600 billion in 2018. The average annual export growth rate reached 14.67%. A ministry official said, despite a challenging trade environment marked by U.S. tariff measures and trade protectionism, Korea turned the crisis into an opportunity, underscoring the resilience of our people and businesses. While outbound shipments declined in the first half of the year, they rebounded sharply from June, setting new monthly records for 6 consecutive months. The ministry attributed the strong performance to robust semiconductor exports, alongside automobiles, ships, and bio-related goods. Food and cosmetics also contributed to the overall growth, along with the popularity of the Korean wave. The government said it will work to sustain momentum next year by strengthening the fundamental competitiveness of industries through manufacturing innovation, diversifying export markets and items, and expanding incentives to attract foreign investment to regional areas. 차윤경, Arirang News.
And turning to the markets, there was more good news on Monday. South Korea's tech giants Samsung Electronics and SK hynix both closed at record highs, on track to end the year on a strong note. Our correspondent Park Jun-an explains what's driving the rally and whether the momentum can continue in the new year.
South Korea's tech leaders, Samsung Electronics and SK hynix, saw significant rises in sales and their stock prices in 2025, both breaking their own all-time records. This was due to the company's solid performances in meeting strong global demand for AI chips.
Even with enough money, it has become difficult to secure semiconductors, as supply and demand instability is expected to persist for some time. With the outlook for semiconductor exports remaining highly optimistic, prices are rising and volumes are increasing, meaning both pricing and volume factors are continuing to strengthen.
As of Monday, Samsung Electronics has seen a remarkable 123.8% increase in its share price year-to-date. Monday's record was also the highest market end value recorded in the company's history. SK hynix, Korea's second-largest company, saw even stronger growth this year, elevating its value by a whopping 273.8%. The momentum behind AI has significantly fueled demand for a dynamic random access memory, or DRAM chips. According to Counterpoint Research's memory market tracker and forecast report, SK hynix and Samsung Electronics ranked as the top 2 global producers of memory chips in the third quarter of 2025, with a combined estimated 67% of the worldwide DRAM market.
AI memory has become the key. As AI memory grows more critical within AI semiconductors, supply and demand imbalances are pushing tech giants to secure memory chips early. This trend suggests memory chip prices are likely to keep rising.
With the AI cycle and momentum still alive, investors are placing major bets on expectations of further upside movements of the two stocks. If the benchmark Kospi reaches 5,000 next year, the performances of Samsung and SK could play a significant role in realizing that ambitious goal. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
Staying on the domestic front, the massive data breach at e-commerce platform Coupang has dominated headlines here in the country for weeks. Now, a day after its founder issued his first public apology, the company on Monday unveiled a compensation package. Here's our Kim Bo-kyung with what you need to know.
Following a massive personal data breach in November, e-commerce giant Coupang on Monday announced a compensation plan worth around 1.68 trillion Korean won. That is around 1.17 billion US dollars. Under the plan, Coupang will provide 50,000 won discount coupons per person to 33.7 million customers. This will include all Coupang WOW members, regular users, and former members who have withdrawn from the services. The compensation payments will be made gradually starting January 15th next year. The purchase coupons consist of those usable in each of Coupang's services. 5,000 won for Coupang, 5,000 for Coupang Eats, the food delivery service, 20,000 for Coupang's travel products, Coupang Travel, and another 20,000 for our luxury beauty and fashion products. All services except Coupang Eats are available through the Coupang app to both WOW members and regular members. Coupang Eats requires downloading the separate food delivery app. Users who previously withdrew from Coupang must rejoin the platform in order to use the vouchers. Coupang's interim chief executive officer Harold Rogers said in a press release that taking this incident as a turning point, Coupang will embrace customer-centric principles and fulfill its responsibilities to the very end, transforming into a company that customers can trust. The announcement of the compensation plan follows an apology issued by Coupang founder Kim Bum-seok on Sunday, marking his first public apology regarding the data breach. In a written public statement that came out nearly a month after the breach was first made public, Kim said he was deeply sorry for the inadequate initial response and lack of communication, but has also notified that he will not attend the joint National Assembly hearing scheduled to begin on Tuesday. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
In the world of K-pop, a full 5-member reunion of K-pop girl group NewJeans now appears unlikely, following the decision by 2 of its members to return to their management agency, Adore. According to the label on Monday, after discussions with the remaining 3 members, Hani decided to respect a court ruling affirming the validity of her exclusive contract and return to Adore. However, Adore said it formally notified member Danielle of the termination of her contract after concluding that it would be, quote, difficult to continue working with her. Minji remains in talks with the agency. Adore also added that it plans to pursue legal action against one unnamed family member of Danielle and the agency's former CEO, Min Hee-jin, whom it says bears significant responsibility for triggering the dispute and delaying the group's return. Now, with just over a month to go until the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy, interest in winter sports is heating up. Now, at the same time, as many look for ways to reflect and reset for the new year, a unique program is offering a blend of both, a so-called curling temple stay. An Sung-jin has this story.
Along Korea's east coast, overlooking the East Sea, Naksansa Temple has long drawn visitors seeking a pause from everyday life, a place for retreat and reflection.
Whenever I feel down, I often return to temple stays because they offer some healing and a chance to look at the natural landscape.
Since it's the end of the year, I wanted to wrap up the year well, stepping away from everyday life, so I came here with a friend.
Naksansa's Temple Stay program includes a guided tour of the temple grounds and the iconic 해수관음상, a statue gazing out toward the sea. Visitors can also take part in traditional meditation programs such as tea meditation, which emphasizes mindfulness through ritual, and singing bowl meditation, known for its calming vibrations. But this winter, Naksansa Temple is offering something entirely new. Now, the Naksansa Temple stay has gone beyond a conventional stay, creating a unique curling temple stay that combines the excitement of winter sports with a traditional monastic experience. Curling, often described as chess on ice, shares similarities with meditation in that they both bring the mind into focus while caring for the body.
It's thrilling and fun, especially sliding across the ice, even though it's a bit slippery. Through this temple stay, I got to try curling, visit the temple, and meet so many new people.
The initiative aims to broaden the appeal of temple stays while offering a fresh way to explore balance, focus, and teamwork beyond the meditation hall.
As temple stays become increasingly connected with the wellness industry, we're also expanding our programs in partnership with the local community. Our goal is to design programs that allow participants to truly experience the temple culture and take time to rest.
Naksansa Temple is redefining what a temple stay can be. The temple's new program invites visitors to discover balance in an unexpected place, where Buddhist philosophy meets winter sports. 안성진, Arirang News, 속초.
It's time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. And for that, we have our sports editor, Paul Nee, joining us in the studio. Hello, Paul.
Hello there. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for joining us. So, Paul, let's begin with football, particularly South Korean players in Europe. I heard there have been some goals and assists.
Yes, including a goal by Hyun-jun, an incredible comeback win for his team. In the Scottish Premier League away to Livingston on Sunday, Hyun-jun made it 2-2 for Celtic with just 10 minutes played. Celtic had found themselves 2-0 down inside 8 minutes to the league's basement side, but a comeback 4-2 win keeps the Hoops in the hunt for the title. It was Yang's first league goal of the season. Meanwhile, Oh Hyun-gyu grabbed an assist on Friday in a 5-3 Genk loss to Club Brugge. It was his first assist of the season. In the Premier League, meanwhile, Hwang Hee-chan started for Wolves in a 2-1 away loss to Liverpool. It was his 13th league appearance of the campaign and 8th from the start, but Wolves have now lost 11 in a row and are without a win in 18.
Well, I hope we can see more wins in the new year. Now, staying with football, but turning to the K-League, there has been a recent spree of managerial appointments, right?
Yes, it is apparently the season to appoint a new manager. Headlining the list is Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors appointing Gimcheon Sangmu boss Chung Jung-young to replace the highly successful Gus Poyet, who won the double with Jeonbuk last year. Meanwhile, Jeju SK have moved for Sergio Costa, who served as Paolo Bento's right-hand man for the national team. Jeju only survived relegation last season. Ulsan HD, meanwhile, another side that only narrowly avoided the drop, have gone for club legend Kim Hyun-sok. Kim had only managed for 2 seasons in K-League 2 before getting the job at Ulsan. And in a real statement of intent, Suwon Blue Rings have hired the so-called K Mourinho Lee Jong-hyo. Outspoken but seen as a highly talented manager, Suwon failed to return to K-League 1 last year, losing to Jeju in the playoffs.
Some familiar names. Now, moving on to winter sports, it seems as the one name to look out for at next year's Winter Olympics in speed skating is Lee Na-hyun, right?
Right. The rising speed skating star claimed back-to-back titles over the weekend. At the 52nd National Sprint Championships, Lee Na-hyun defeated national icon Kim Min-son. In every race, he won both rounds of the 500 metres and the 1,000 metres, finishing first in all 4 races, confirming her status as Korea's next sprint ace. She posted a time of 38.53 seconds in the second 500 metres and 1 minute 17.2 seconds in the second 1,000 metres. Both skaters are expected to be medal contenders at the 2026 Winter Olympics. Now, the Sprint Championships are a domestic competition focused on short-distance skaters and are used to evaluate current form for national team consideration and to help build results towards Olympic cycles.
All right, good luck to Lee Na-hyun and to Team Korea. And last but not least, let's move on to baseball. So what's the latest ahead of the World Baseball Classic?
Well, it seems that selection remains a topic of increased interest. According to a national team official on Friday via Yonhap News, when South Korea holds a training camp in Saipan next month, players based overseas this year will also be welcome to join. Go Woo-sok is one name that's been mentioned. The team will head to Saipan from January 9th to the 21st, and all but one of the 29-man squad is from the KBO, Song Sung-moon, who recently moved to the San Diego Padres. Other potential names headed to MLB mid-season and will therefore need permission to feature in the World Baseball Classic in March.
All right, Paul, thanks for that, and thank you for all your hard work this year. We'll see you next week in the new year.
Thank you. A pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Even though the rain clouds cleared this afternoon, the air quality became even worse. Ultrafine dust levels already rose to bad range. With fog mixed in, the air looks particularly hazy. Some areas of Gyeongsangnam-do province will have bad levels of ultrafine dust tonight, but that will clear tomorrow. The temperature in Seoul reached 8 degrees Celsius this afternoon, about 6 degrees higher than the average. However, with cold air moving in overnight, a strong cold snap is expected again around the new year. On the very first day of the new year, the morning is expected to be cold at minus 11 degrees in Seoul. Tomorrow morning, Seoul and Daejeon will plunge to minus 3 degrees. Gyeongju start at minus 2 degrees. Daily highs will move up to only 2 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, 4 degrees in Daejeon. Along the East Coast, dry conditions have been continuing. Please be extra careful not to cause any wildfires. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's Newscenter for this final Monday of 2025. Thank you for watching, and from all of us here at Arirang, stay warm and stay safe.
Korea, a globally recognized sports powerhouse. Behind the dazzling achievements, there's always an invisible force at work. With sophisticated materials, cutting-edge equipment, and innovative technological solutions, SMEs in the K-sports industry play a vital role in bolstering Korea's status as a sports powerhouse. By integrating AI technology, they unlock athletes' potential and enhance performance, elevating the sports environment to the next level and opening new markets in the sports industry. Their innovative technology and bold challenges drive the growth of Korea's sports industry, creating a better world through sports. The innovation of these SMEs never stops. A systematic partnership support program is implemented to discover promising sports SMEs, provide technical validation and R&D support to enhance competitiveness, and strengthen the foundation for overseas expansion. At Tokyo Sportech 2025, the technological prowess of Korean companies was recognized. The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, and the Korea Sports Promotion Foundation supported K-sports companies with product promotion and business consultations with global buyers, demonstrating product quality and market potential, and confirming the possibility of expanding into the global market.
저희는 ICT 강국으로서 바이어나 사용자들한테 신기술을 접목한 생활 스포츠 기회를 실질적으로 확대할 수 있는 그 기회를 제공하는데 많은 도움이 될 수 있으리라고 확신을 합니다.
이제 스포츠도 K죠. K 스포츠는 이겁니다.
The joy for all, created by the power of K-sports. Experience the future of the new sports industry through the innovation and technology of the Korean sports industry.
조용한 바람 그대 생각하나 내게 물어옵니다. 그렇게 그댄
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Keon. As the year 2025 draws to a close, the Lee Na-hyun administration faces its first major diplomatic crossroads. Over the past 6 months, President Lee has worked to maintain South Korea's alliance with the United States while seeking strategic balance with China and reviving the so-called shuttle diplomacy with Japan. From breaking diplomatic customs to navigating sensitive historical and security tensions, his government has moved quickly to shift Korea's foreign policy direction. With 2026 on the horizon, the question now is, where is South Korea's diplomacy headed next? For a discussion on this, we connect to Christophe Godin, Professor of Political Science at Kookmin University. A big welcome, Professor.
Good evening.
And also joining us is Dr. Kim Mi-kyung, Senior Researcher at Gyeongsang National University Korea Social Sciences Research Institute. Good to see you.
Very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So let's start our discussion with Professor Godang. We know for a fact that President Lee Na-hyun has emphasized pragmatic, national interest-first diplomacy in his first year in office. So given how quickly the global landscape is changing right now, what is the significance of improving South Korea's ties with key regional neighbors like China and Japan?
I think that what pragmatic means here is that basically there is little that Korea can achieve directly because Korea has lost its main ally in the region and in world politics. That was the US. So there is little that can be achieved directly, and there are a lot of mistakes to be avoided. Like, for instance, the inflammatory comment that Mr. Kaishi, the Prime Minister of Japan, made about the situation in Taiwan last month with no positive outcome. So what President Lee is trying to achieve is to maintain some sort of normalcy in international relations. And mostly the main objective of this Lee administration is to push for exports. It is to somehow undermine this push for tariffs that has been so typical of the Trump administration, because the South Korean economy depends heavily on exports, as you know. And what we can tell is that so far, this policy has been relatively successful. It has been successful because Korea has been able to reach an all-time high in terms of exports. And it has also been successful because basically Korea has been able to achieve any kind of major controversy. So, long story short, the policy of the Lee administration is about dodging bullets, basically, and so far, so good.
All right. Thank you for that clear summary in a nutshell, Professor. Now, let's also touch upon Japan. So, back in August, President Lee Na-hyun broke diplomatic precedent by visiting Japan before heading to the United States. Dr. Kim, what impact do you think this unusual sequence had on the relations between Seoul and Tokyo and the broader regional diplomatic balance as well?
Well, it was a bold move that carried significant pragmatic as well as symbolic weight. By breaking precedent, Seoul wanted to send a signal to Japan that South Korea views the bilateral relationship as strategically important in its own right. It was also a momentum for President Lee to transform his previous image as anti-Japan over history issues and the release of contaminated water at the Fukushima power plant. The visit represented a notable evolution for President Lee from an aspiring political figure to the national leader. Such evolution demonstrated Lee's willingness to put pragmatism over past rhetoric. Yet, let us not read too much into the sequence of events. I believe Washington agreed to Seoul's Tokyo-Washington itinerary and welcomed the development, as the U.S. has long been frustrated by how the bilateral tension over history complicates the trilateral security cooperation. As a backdrop, both Lee and then Japanese Prime Minister Mr. Ishiba were facing similar challenges with Trump administration, such as pressure to increase defense spending, tariff issues, and unpredictable policy shifts. So Lee's itinerary suggested both countries saw the bigger need to coordinate with each other in order to navigate the U.S.-related uncertainties.
So the order of the itinerary was also possibly welcomed by the United States as well. Now, in fact, regarding the ties between Seoul and Tokyo, President Lee has met with the Prime Minister of Japan for 4 times. Dr. Kim, how would you evaluate the meaning and results of those repeated meetings, especially in terms of bilateral ties and regional diplomacy?
Including the Tokyo summit in August, the leaders met 4 times in 5 months. These meetings represent a continuation of bilateral shuttle diplomacy. Both sides have been demonstrating a commitment to frequent, regularized engagement. The visit by former Prime Minister Mr. Ishiba to Busan in particular marked the first visit by a Japanese leader to a location other than Seoul in more than 2 decades, and President Lee himself has proposed Nara Prefecture as the site for next summit meeting scheduled for early next January. Japan is South Korea's 4th largest trading partner. It's an important country to the ROK, and there is a clear potential for expanded ties, especially in times of Washington's hard-to-predict policy behavior towards its allies. Both countries are navigating a volatile relationship with Washington, where Trump's unpredictable foreign policy behavior has thrown once stable alliances into question. Improved ROK-Japan relationship, therefore, provides both countries with greater diplomatic leverage in managing their relations with the U.S.
So it sounds like there's been some clear movement over there. Now, let's shift our focus a little bit to China now. President Lee has worked to improve ties with Beijing, taking a different approach from the previous administration. So over the past year, Professor Go-dang, what would you say was the most significant development in terms of Korea-China relations?
The main development, I would say, is that this Korea has not become as strained as one could have expected. In fact, as you know, during this unfortunate martial law episode last year, there were many conspiracy theories that former President Yoon weaponized in order to justify his martial law, so targeting China explicitly. Also, another point is that in the time we are now, China and Korea's interests align in many ways, mostly because both economies are extremely export-oriented, not to say export-dependent. And so both of them could have been very badly hit by President Trump's tariffs. So now what President Lee has been trying to do with China is basically very similar to what he's been doing with all other countries all over the world with this pragmatic approach of his. He has tried to move away from political and ideological issues, which is why, contrary to Mr. Takahashi, for instance, he hasn't discussed the case of Taiwan. And mostly he has tried to focus on economic issues. And so in order to do so that's the objective, if you like. But in terms of method now, what is interesting is that during this APEC summit, so that took place about a month ago, a little more, the first thing that is remarkable about this summit is that it took place. It happened, and it wasn't a disaster. So some channels of communication are maintained. But as no global agreement could be reached realistically, Korea has been pushing for a sort of corridor diplomacy that is trying to negotiate with the US directly, with China directly, but also with more middle powers like Australia, for instance, one by one, trying to achieve basically minor settlements just to keep business going. So this sort of policy is successful, and honestly, there is no other line of conduct I could think of in a near future, but it can only be successful, it can only remain successful if no major crisis happens. It can work as long as Korea doesn't have to take stances. So right now, this pragmatism of the Lee administration, I think you could better label it a sort of point-to-point navigation or dodging bullets, as I put it before. It is successful. It has been really remarkably skilled all along, but we still need to see how this approach could be implemented if a major crisis were to break out in East Asia, for instance, in Taiwan.
Right. So as for now, it has been quite successful, being stuck in the middle, trying to balance. But speaking of which, you know, we are definitely cautious about any times of crisis. What are your thoughts? What would you advise South Korea if there happens to be an incident?
Well, as you know, there has been, because China has been holding military drills near Taiwan over the last days. The problem is relatively simple. In terms of economic interests, China, Korea, Japan align. All of them depend on exports. And so all of them need to push for a more open economic policy that is obviously, again, these tariffs that President Trump has been trying to force all over the world. That being said, the problem with China and the problem with Japan is relatively similar in both cases. In the case of China, there is this Taiwan issue, and the Chinese Communist Party will never give up on Taiwan. And in the case of Japan, the problem is that the Liberal Democratic Party now cannot be expected to take a softer stance on diplomatic issues because for the moment, this party is losing voters, and it is losing voters to a more radical right-wing populist party that is pushing for a more nationalistic stance. And so in this context, it is necessary for Ms. Takeshi to label herself as a sort of Japanese Iron Lady, a Japanese equivalent, a Japanese counterpart of Margaret Thatcher. She cannot look weak because in this case, her party would be to lose more voters to this far right-wing competition of hers. So, long story short, China, Korea, and Japan share similar interests, but nationalism in China and in Japan these days has become so intense that it makes both countries relatively difficult to predict.
Right, definitely. So we are in a very tough position with varying interests from each parties. So all the more the relationship between the three is very important. And speaking of which, we are expected to, for President Lee to actually visit both Japan and China in the early months of the new year. So Dr. Kim, what does the early reactivation of this shuttle diplomacy actually signal in this context?
Yes. South Korea's foreign minister indeed announced plans for President Lee's state visit to China early next year and continue shuttle diplomacy with Japan. He is set to become the first sitting South Korean president to travel to China since 2019. Beginning next year, with high-level shuttle diplomacy to both Japan and China, sends a powerful message about President Lee's foreign policy priorities. That is, to demonstrate that Seoul intends to proactively shape the regional diplomatic landscape rather than simply react to developments initiated by Washington and Beijing. I think this is something significant and important. And after intensive engagement with Japan throughout this year, maintaining this pace into the new year prevents any loss of momentum. This is a sign of strong commitment to the promise of shuttle diplomacy between the two countries, and it shows that improved Seoul-Tokyo relations are not that temporary phenomenon, but a sustained strategic commitment that will define Lee's presidency. The fact that Lee would be the first sitting South Korean president to travel to China since 2019 makes this restart particularly significant. It represents a deliberate effort to overcome the chill in relations during the Yoon Suk-yeol administration and signaled Seoul's commitment to balance regional diplomacy. So what's going to happen early next month will be something important to the regional stability and security.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. We're all going to look forward to that. But what about Professor Gudang? What do you think could be expected from these meetings?
I have no crystal ball, but I think that most likely they are likely to emphasize economic issues. Because everything that is ideological or territorial, in particular the issues of Taiwan and Dokdo, are toxic. So for them, eventually these issues will have to be addressed. But for now, nothing that could be said, in my opinion, could be helpful. So mostly what the three countries are to push for, more likely it will be economic cooperation, mostly technological cooperation, and also, if things play well, a more coordinated response to American tariffs. For the moment, for instance, Korea has been able to decrease Trump's tariffs from 25 to 15%. It is probably possible to do better, but not by Korea alone. Some sort of coordinated response along with China and Japan obviously would be much more impactful than anything Korea could try by herself. So what I expect will be a course of action that will focus on the economy, on education, on technology, and probably anything regarding Taiwan, Dokdo, and the like. If people are in their right mind, these issues are probably to be avoided as much as possible, for the time being at least.
Definitely. So we would look forward to some economic discussions over there. Now, finally, so we're really expecting visits to Japan and China by early next year, and tensions are continuing to rise between the two regional powers. Dr. Kim, what kind of pragmatic diplomatic path do you think South Korea should actually take from now on?
You know, I don't have a crystal ball in my hand either, but let me start my train of thoughts from what happened 20 days ago at Japan's National Diet. The Japanese Prime Minister, Ms. Takaichi, was asked about Dokdo by one of the members of Parliament. And then she said, Dokdo is Japan's inherent territory. And then she continued that the situation of illegal occupation by South Korea has not changed at all. And this naturally invited Seoul's strongest rebuttal to the Japanese government since President Lee Na-hyun took office last June. The tension lies in the situation where Dokdo is non-negotiable for South Korean domestic politics. Yet, improved ROK-Japan relations are essential for South Korea's strategic interests. In other words, any perception of weakness on Dokdo can be politically fatal for any political leader in South Korea, while allowing territorial disputes to dominate the relationship can undermine cooperation on security, economy, and regional stability. As for my 2 cents, I think South Korea should continue the two-track approach, that is, separation of historical and territorial issues from forward-looking cooperation, but with explicit understanding of what constitutes acceptable behavior. That would be my advice to the ROK government. And I believe Seoul's response was very appropriate. It was strong, immediate, and unambiguous. The presidential office should continue to issue stern rebuttals to Japanese territorial claims, while making clear these statements will not derail broader cooperation between the two countries. The message should be, we'll always defend our sovereignty forcefully, but we remain committed to bilateral relationship. On the other hand, Seoul should not insist on Japan's complete cease in making Dokdo-related statements. Why? Because it's not realistic. It's not going to have, Japan is not going to stop its claim over Dokdo. Japanese politicians face domestic pressures, just like their Korean counterparts, and such demands will only fail and make Seoul look weak.
A very strong note, an important note to conclude our discussion tonight. It's really a tough balancing act, but we have to protect our sovereignty and refrain from crossing each other's line moving forward for the better of each parties. We'll have to conclude our discussion right here. Thank you so much for your insights, Dr. Kim.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, Professor Godang, we really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.